This was brought to you by the Storyteller on YouTube and Facebook.
Being near that track made me feel fairly confident of my safety, and I wandered into the wood at the far side. Perhaps 100 m from the track I came upon very thick undergrowth, which I worked out would be a good place to create some sort of shelter to hide in, and protect me from bad weather. Getting through the undergrowth meant crawling through a small hole, possibly one which had been used by animals such as foxes or perhaps even boars. At the far side of the hole, it opened out into a little oval-shaped clearing about 30 meters long and 20 meters wide, carpeted with tufty grass and wild plants. When I looked at the hole I had just come through, I saw that it was underneath blackthorn and other prickly bushes, which increased my confidence still further. In fact, most of the bushes round that clearing were also ones with thorns. There were a couple of other small holes under them which I thought might give me an escape tunnel if ever I needed one. I could not remember exactly where the camping ground we had used was in relation to this place, and simultaneously I realized that some canvas from the old camp would be very useful indeed. With the axe, I cut some branches and wove twigs round them, covering them with leafy branches to form a small rough shelter. I ate some of the food I had brought and settled down to sleep for a very disturbed night full of sadness and nightmares. The noises in the forest did not worry me in the slightest, because they were the same sort of noises that I was used to hearing every night at the camping ground, and especially where Vanta and I had lived. It was the sound of the morning in my own soul which kept waking me. Next morning, I was up early, tucked the knife and axe in my belt, crawled out through their little entrance tunnel, crossed the woodcutter's track, and entered the wood at the far side. I looked for traces of my journey from the previous day, such as snapped small twigs or footmarks in the undergrowth, but I had left little evidence, so this time I also marked my passage with vermi, information signs used by gypsies, consisting of bits of leaves apparently accidentally caught on twigs so that I would be able to find my way back more easily another time. It was a lot further to the camping ground than I had expected, and it took me a whole 2 hours to get there, though it is not impossible that some of the time I went round in spirals rather than using more direct routes, because I simply could not see well enough through the trees to help me find the best way. I saw the edge of the camping ground beyond the trees ahead before I got to it, and made a cautious approach, but there was no sign of anyone there, let alone the Germans, and no sign that anybody had been there since the day before. I went round the caravans finding more items to use back at my new camp, and especially finding pieces of canvas to make a better shelter. I stuffed as much as I could into 3 sacks, and put them over my shoulder. The hens gave a squawking as I left, as if pleading with me to stay and feed them, but all the dogs had disappeared except one old bitch which started following me. I did not mind that because I knew it would be lonely otherwise, and it might even give me a little forewarning if my hiding place was discovered. After a while, though, the bitch gave up and turned back. In one of the sacks I had put in what food I could find, a few more men's clothes which looked pretty new, and cooking utensils, whilst in another was the canvas from tents, and a few bits and pieces I thought would be useful. Following my own vermi back to the track, and then to my new abode was very simple, and I began work straight away making a tent using the branches I had cut before, and the canvas. I can't claim that it was luxurious or even a very good design of tent, but for my first effort at making a tent I didn't think it at all bad. The following day I made my way back to the camp, and from there returned to Vanta's place. Here I loaded myself with several of Vanta's medicines and herbs which I thought might come in useful. There was also a small handcart which I very much wanted to take because I would be able to carry more things. But though I could have got it back to the main camp, I could not see how I could trundle it through thick undergrowth to get back to my new home, so I left it.
This was brought to you by the Storyteller on YouTube and Facebook. Listen to our podcast on any of these platforms: Anchor, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Casts, RadioPublic, Spotify. Support us on Patreon. And check us out on Discord. All the links can be found in the video description below. We thank you for your participation. If you enjoyed, please like, subscribe, share, make comments. We love feedback.